with a Business is brought to you by Audible.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Married with a Business. I'm Craig.
And I'm Allison.
And we're Married with a Business. We're here to share tips, tricks, stories, and share other people's stories of what it's like to be married couples that own and operate a business together. Allison, how you doing this week?
I'm great this week. I'm exhausted today. I feel like I got hit by a truck.
Yeah, so it has been a crazy weekend.
It's always a crazy weekend.
Okay, it's always a crazy weekend when you own a business and you have family and kids that are in junior high and trying to deal with all that. But this weekend was super exciting because our oldest competed in his first ever robotics competition.
Yes, for first Lego League. His new school has a robotics team. He's got one for the 7th and 8th graders, then one for the high school kids, and he joined the 7th and 8th grade team this year. So it's just 7th graders, so they're considered a rookie team because none of them have ever done anything. And we spent almost 14 hours yesterday, I think, between driving to and from up at a high school north of Boston and watched them in 2.5-minute bursts compete for this state qualifiers.
Yeah, and so it was kind of funny. We had a meeting with the robotics coach the week prior to going to the event, and she was super nice, and she was like, listen, she really lowered expectations for us, for the kids, because she's like, it's their first year, they're all 7th graders, it might be, you don't expect them to go past, we rarely get into, it's hard to get in the States, don't expect them to get far, it's just they need to show up and experience it and learn to teamwork and all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's what they've been doing. They've definitely been learning teamwork and communication and how to interact when you're annoyed and angry at each other.
And then meanwhile, we go there, so we expect, hey, it'll be this one weekend thing or whatever. Nope, they got 3rd place in one of the categories.
Yep, in core values, which is about being a good teammate, being a good teammate with each other, and then how they interacted with all the other kids.
Yep, and then they finished 9th overall and qualified for the States.
Out of 42 teams.
Yeah, so we have this again next weekend.
It was a great learning experience. I'm glad we can utilize all of the notes we took because we're a baseball family. I'd never sat in a gymnasium for 12 hours on basketball seats, so I will know how to prepare better for next week.
Yes, but that was awesome. It was really good. Our oldest was super excited about it. He had a great time. He was really proud of himself and his team.
These are things like hitting, because he doesn't play sports, he hasn't hit those adrenaline moments of you won the game, the confidence that it builds, that these things that we didn't think we could achieve, we achieved.
And so it's great. I'm excited for him. So that was fun. What else was fun, Allison, is we have a guest that we interviewed for this week's show.
Yeah, so as always, we're always talking about what is our long-term plan, how are we getting better. It's the end of the year, so we're starting to think about our plan for next year and the next 3 and 5 years. So we talked this week to Victoria Robillard, who is a financial advisor with Edward Jones. She's also a certified exit planning advisor, a chartered retirement planning specialist. And we kind of talk to her about retirement savings, retirement planning, not just for us, but for some of our team members. And it was really interesting, and she has so much great information.
Yeah, so let's check out what Victoria has to say. All right, everybody, we're excited to have Victoria Robillard, a financial advisor with Edward Jones, joining us this week on the show. Victoria, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Victoria, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you became a financial advisor.
Sure. So I'm a financial advisor with Edward Jones. I have just a little background. I've got 2 kids, 13 and 10. I had to correct myself there. And I have not always been a financial advisor. I actually started my career as an architect. I worked as an architect for 10 years. I absolutely loved the design, the build, all of that. But when we had our kids, we couldn't manage 2 big careers and both of us be really successful. So I decided to take a step back and raise our kids for a while, always with the intention of going back to be an architect. That's really what I plan to do. Fast forward 10 years later, it was only supposed to be 3. 10 years later, I'm still sitting at home with the kids, doing side projects, but I was getting to see what my husband did in the financial services world. And I said, you know what? I want to do that. So I went back to work. I worked at Fidelity as a wholesaler. And what that means is I sold mutual funds to financial advisors. And as I experienced that, I said, wait, I'm on the wrong side of the table here. I really want to be working with clients. I miss that idea of building something, of planning something, of working towards a big goal. So I made the jump and now I'm a financial advisor and I couldn't be happier.
No, that's awesome, and I think that it's always interesting to hear how people shift their careers or find their careers, and having the ability to be open to understanding what you're going to be best at and how you want to help people is a really interesting way to look at it, especially in the financial side of that industry.
So one of the things that I thought was interesting is so many couples who are running businesses are so busy running their day-to-day aspects of their business. They're not thinking about that long-term plan. They're not thinking about their exit plan. They're not thinking about their retirement plan. And that was kind of the case with my family business that I came into. My mom worked outside of our company, but my dad didn't really have a plan for retirement. So that's one of the reasons we want to talk to you today. How do you think people, how do they even start to think about what do they need to do to retire, and how do they what's the beginning process of that, trying to figure out what they have and what they don't have?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to just hark back to what I talked about earlier when I just said I wanted to be on this side of the table as a financial advisor. So my husband works in finance as well, and I was working in finance. And one day I looked at him and I said, what the heck are we doing with our finances? We didn't even know where to start. So that's where a financial advisor can really come in and help you plan. I always go back to the idea of construction, and I know you're both in construction. There's a set process in construction. There's a set process in a lot of companies and a lot of ways entrepreneurs set up their day. It's the same with financial advising. It's understanding what you have first, understanding where you want to go. Is that place even accessible? Will you even ever get there? Once you decide, like, oh, yeah, we can get there, we're going to find out how to get there. And then we're going to put a plan in place to kind of circle back and keep going in that circle and make sure we're always on that path going towards those goals. Those goals might change, especially as an entrepreneur. Maybe you plan to, this is my retirement. I'm going to grow this business, and sell it. The economy changes. Life changes. You have a child who wants to come into the business. Well, we need to have those conversations every year about, all right, here's the plan, here's the plan, here's the plan. And it's a lot of planning and thinking forward and then revisiting and revisiting. And the best thing you can do is honestly have an accountability partner to remind you each year, to call you up, because you're not going to remember on yourself. You don't remember to go to the dentist every 6 months, but they call you up and say, hey, it's time to go to the dentist. It's got to be the same with finances as well.
When a couple or when anybody is starting to think about, connecting with somebody and starting that process, how do you feel? Like, what's the best way to find the right person who can work best with and for you as a financial advisor?
Yeah, I think you really need to interview more than one person. I wouldn't just go to one person and say, hey, you're right down the street, or I met you at a BNI group, or I met you at a networking group. You've got to find somebody who understands you and who you understand their process. And that's going to be synergy, because it's not a transactional relationship. It's not like going to get your car fixed once, and if it doesn't work out, too bad, we'll go there to another time. It's a whole process, and you've got to make sure it's somebody you're super comfortable with. I always like to say, if I were to pick a financial advisor, I look at education. It's some financial advisor firms, you have to get a lot of education, and others you don't. And there's formal education and there's informal education, but just understanding what requirements are set by their company or by the industry, and what are they meeting and what are they not meeting. The next thing is personality. Is this somebody, when I see that phone call, am I going to want to talk to them? If I see them out in public, will I want to say hi? Like, some people you just don't want to say hi. It just doesn't fit. And then the third thing, is their process that I talked about before in line with what you're looking for? Processes change from advisor to advisor. Is that something that you're comfortable with and comfortable with that process?
So when someone meets with you for the first time, how do you explain your process to them?
I kind of start just where we were there. I want to find out who you are, what your goals are, and then we talk about that whole process, the idea of, you know, now that we've talked about who you are, what your goals are, we've understood that it's achievable, and here's how we work together and this circle. But I think more so, even understanding who you are and what your goals are, I want you to feel comfortable with me. A lot of times I let that very first conversation be driven by the client. I want them to ask me all their questions. I want them to understand I'm going to be vulnerable with them too, especially when you own a business. This is kind of another child. I know you both have two children together. This is kind of your third child. And it's hard to unwrap that child and kind of leave it exposed because that's your life work. So I try and be very vulnerable too and understand. I know this might be hard for you. I know it might take 2 times for us to talk. It might take 4 times. You might think about it for 6 months and come back to me with different questions. But just understand I'm here to an open book.
I know there's a lot of people who are probably at a point in their life where they haven't done anything or they've done very little. Is there ever a point where it's too late to start, and ever a point where it's too late to get with a financial advisor and start trying to figure things out?
It's never a point where it's too late. It's a point where you might have to adjust your expectations because of where you are, but never a point where it's too late. And it should never be a point where you feel embarrassed because you didn't do it sooner, because there are so many people out there who are like you, who might be like you and just haven't started yet. So I never say there's a point that it's too late, but there's always a point we might need to adjust our expectations.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I guess when you're working with somebody talking about how aggressive they need to be, does that kind of go into, like, do certain financial advisors, are they better fit to work with people who need to be aggressive, or is it, are you able to kind of across the board deal with whatever kind of situation arises?
A good financial advisor should be able to deal with what's appropriate for that client, whether that be that client needs to be aggressive or wants to be aggressive, or whether that client wants to be super conservative. And then there's a part of training, like that client might want to be super conservative, but they're young and they have quite a bit of assets. They have an opportunity there, and it's an education piece.
So, in terms of thinking about my business and my team, when we're thinking about, okay, we as the owners need to set up retirement planning. I know there's several different options for us to set up for our company. A long time ago, we set up simple plans, but that was when we were small. And what's the difference between a simple plan and a 401k plan? Because a lot of times when you're a small business, you hear the options for both.
Yeah, so there are quite a few differences with a simple plan and a 401k plan, especially when you're looking at it from the owner side. So the first difference is a simple plan. If you as the owners want to put in money for yourself, you also have to put in money for your employees, and that might be at a different ratio. In a 401k plan, you can choose to match or not match. So if you have a company that has a lot of volatility in how much profits they make in a year, you might not want to be tied to a simple plan where that contribution is required. 401k might be better. The next difference is the amount you can contribute per year. And I don't know when people are going to listen to this in the future, so I'm not going to give you an amount, but you can contribute quite a bit more to a 401k than you can contribute to a simple plan. So if you're a business owner, probably in your 40s, who doesn't have anything set up yet, or maybe doesn't have a lot set up yet, it might be a good idea to look at that 401k because of the idea that you can contribute more, get more tax write-off too for your business than you can for a simple. And the other big thing is the cost of setting it up. A simple is not simple to set up, but it is easier to set up than a 401k. And typically the costs are very low. And the reason is it's a simple IRA, which means every account you set up, that is run by each of your employees separately. You have to put in money, but the employees do what they do. A 401k is kind of more of a group plan, which means all those plans fall into the same thing. So it's a little bit more expensive to set up. It's a little bit more hassle to run, but when you run it with a great partner, whether that be a record keeper or a record keeper and a financial advisor, if you're smart, a record keeper, a TPA, and a financial advisor, it can run really smoothly and it can be a huge asset to your employees for when they're thinking about retirement too. So a lot of times when I talk to businesses about simples versus 401k, I look who are their employees and who do they want their employees to be? Do they want employees who stick around for a long time who could benefit from a 401k? Do they have employees who only last 2 years and they're not even going to be eligible for a 401k anyway? What are the age of those employees? Are their employees really young and a simple might be easy, or they need to save a little bit more for retirement? And then also, how much involvement do they want? Is this going to be a great asset for them in terms of hiring the right people, holding the right people? Um, or is it just kind of to write it off? The other thing to consider too, some states now require businesses to have some sort of employer plan. Massachusetts, where I know you live and I live, it's not a requirement yet. They do have an option, but we're seeing surrounding states have that requirement. So making sure you're set up for success and getting the most out of your plan is important.
Yeah, and I think that's, as a business owner, I think one of the hard things is understanding the changes in regulations and requirements and all those things. And that's something a financial advisor kind of can help you with.
Yeah, a financial advisor, especially one who partners with your CPA. So that's what I really like to do when I work with these plans. I like to sit down with that business's CPA too to make sure, all right, are we maxing out those tax benefits? Are we understanding where we can take a little bit more money out of the business and save you a little bit more in taxes and make sure that works together as a whole picture.
How do you stay up to date on all the changes in the financial world and regulations?
So I enjoy it, kind of a geek. I really enjoy that. But I do partner with other people. So remember I said I was a wholesaler at Fidelity? Well, one of the jobs of the wholesalers that I work with is to provide me that information. So every day I have probably 15, 20 emails in my inbox. I read every single one of them, and they're going to kind of point me in the right direction as those changes happen. And I'm always looking for opportunities to kind of continue that education so that I'm sure I'm not missing anything.
I think one thing that a lot of people think about if they haven't worked with a financial advisor before is what's the fee structure like? I think a lot of people look at it and go, oh, I'm going to have to spend all this money to invest my money. What should they expect or hear from financial advisors?
So what I would hope most financial advisors talk about is you can choose the way you pay. There are different ways to set up the fee structure. Some fees are assets under care, and that means the amount of assets you hold within that financial institution, you pay a small percentage on them. When you're looking at a fee structure, you want to make sure as those assets go up, which is good for you and good for the financial advisor, that fee basis points or the amount you're paying in a fee goes down. So you might pay a little bit more if you only have $100,000 with that financial advisor. If you have $5 million, that percentage is much less. The other option is commission based. And so that means every time you do a trade, every time something happens in your account, you pay a fee based on what that trade was. And then it goes even deeper than that, but those are the two broad spectrums.
Is there something or a question that you wish people would ask you that they don't ask you early enough or often enough?
That's a great question, Allison. I think I like to bring up fees really, really early on, and I usually do that in the very first appointment. So, you know, not everybody's comfortable with asking that question right away. I tend to bring it up very upfront because I think it's important to be in full disclosure when it comes to how I make my money and how you're going to make money. The one thing I think that I wish people would ask me more is how I work with other professionals when it comes to their team. So when you think about finances, a lot of people think, all right, I'm going to a financial advisor. It's like going to the dentist. I just need one. They don't talk to everybody, but it's actually like going to the doctor or a specialist. I need to talk to your CPA. I need to know who your estate attorney is. I need to know everybody on your team. If you have a business coach, what that relationship's like, because it's the idea of kind of being a quarterback and to understand all those pieces and how they go together.
So you're a mom of two, and you've got a husband who works, and you're building a business yourself. What's something that you hope your kids are learning from watching you?
You know what I hope that it's hard. I'll make it emotional now. What I'm hoping they're learning is that you can have it all. And I don't mean to be flippant about that because for so long I thought, all right, as a mom, that's my job and I'm okay with that. Well, I can still be a great mom. Yeah, I might miss a soccer game here or there, or we might be staying up late, or we might be eating dinner at 8 o'clock some nights. But just because I'm focused on myself and I'm focused on my business doesn't mean I'm not doing a good job there too. And I want my kids, both my daughter and son, to see that, to see the power of making sure that there's time for you and time to put back into your business because you can spend your whole life serving other people, serving your kids and your family. And I think that's important, but I think it's pretty awesome when you can do both too.
Yeah, absolutely. Victoria, thank you so much for being on the show. Tell us a little bit about how people could find you if they're interested in talking to you about financial advising.
Yeah, you can Google Victoria Robillard, Edward Jones. My name should pop right up. LinkedIn is a great way to find me. You can search for my website. I think it's edwardjones.com/Victoria Robillard. You can find out more about my story there and all the ways to email me, contact me, call me.
Victoria, I know you're an avid reader. What's something that you've been reading or listening to lately that has impacted you?
I am an avid reader. This is actually kind of funny. Um, I don't know why I'm laughing, but I've been really into feng shui recently. So I've read a couple of books on that. I can't think of the titles right now, but that idea, like how your space can affect you and affect everything that's going on. And it always kind of harkens back to the fact that I was an architect once and I'm like, oh yeah, I can see why that would happen. So that's what I've been big into right now, feng shui. And then um, I just read The Women. If you haven't read that Kristen Hanna book, it was excellent. It's a fictional book.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on this week, and we really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Allison, I love having people on the show, and I think for me, sometimes the most exciting part of having guests on the show, lots of great information about, financial advice and all that kind of stuff. I liked her story. Like I like the story of going from being, an architect to the mom thing to now, ready to get back into it and be a financial advisor. I love hearing people's stories.
I love the mom thing. That doesn't ever change.
I know. But I think, I think there are stations in life where, especially if there's one person, like there's always one primary caregiver. And so it was interesting to talk a little bit about that.
Well, and what was so interesting is I got so much great information, but I think I have another 20 questions I jotted down of things I'd love to hear more about.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I know she said it, and we've talked about this before. It's really never too late. Like if you haven't started, you need to start. You need to have a plan. Finding somebody that can help you, and finding somebody that's a good fit for you is important. And she kind of talked about how to find that person that's a good fit for you, but making sure that you do something. Because it's not just you don't just retire. And especially if you're of our age, if you're in your 40s or your 50s and you're expecting that, you're going to live off of Social Security or something like that, you really need to check yourself. You really need to make a plan.
Well, right. And as business owners and those who are supposed to be the more educated, it's really important for us to also help our team members prepare because you don't know what you don't know until it's too late sometimes. And we have to be a good steward for everybody who's on our team and in our circle.
Yeah, so thank you so much for Victoria Robillard for joining us. She is located in Scituate, Massachusetts. If you're looking for somebody in that area to help you with financial advice, she works for Edward Jones, a great financial institution that can help you as well. So the biggest thing is just, come away. Do something. Don't do nothing. Allison, great show. What have you been listening to this week?
So I just finished listening on Audible to 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman. And it was really interesting because I didn't get so much of the time management stuff out of it as much as I did about how we view time.
Yeah, it's interesting because, when you read the little blurb about the book, the first line about it is, the average human lifespan is absurdly, insultingly brief. Assuming you live to be 80, you have just over 4,000 weeks. It's kind of like weird to think about when you break it down like that.
Right. And when you get all like existential about it, like our lives are so insignificant in the course of time.
Yeah, right. And like, we always talk about, there's not enough time, but there really isn't enough time.
There really isn't, but it's really about how are we spending our time and how do we value our time. And I know that's something we talk about a lot with business owners.
Yeah, so check it out, 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Berkman. You can listen to it on Audible, and you can get a free 30 days of Audible on us. Just go to audibletrial.com/bizmarried. That's audibletrial.com/bizmarried to get a free 30 days of Audible. You can also check out a lot of other things about us. We're on social media, Allison. We're on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Just search @bizmarried or Married with a Business. You can also check out our website, marriedwithabusiness.net. You can go on there. You can fill out to be a guest on the show. You can find out a little bit more about us, all of those kind of things, if you're interested in finding out more about who we are.
Yeah, we love talking to people on the show, and we love coming to talk to other people.
Yeah, so check it out. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back with another episode soon. And remember, not only is it important to focus on your business, but also your marriage, because we're married with a business.